Judgment Day is finally here. After all these years of waiting, everybody now had a chance to experience the game for themselves firsthand with the open beta. But a topic that is still on a lot of people's mind is the graphics. More specifically, everybody wants to know if the graphics are on par with what they showed back in 2013 and 2014, and thus, on request from you guys, I'm doing another graphics comparison video to see if the game holds up to the promised features. Let's begin. The last time we did a comparison like this was just after E3 2015, where the game did seem to have a visual downgrade. The way that we measured these graphical differences was by taking a look at the Snowdrop engine and writing down every feature that they promised that the Division would have. We ended up with a total of 5. We had dynamic global illumination, procedural destruction, dynamic material shaders, the advanced particle system, and last up, the time of day. I actually thought to myself that it was very fair to judge the game on only these criteria, because these are the features that they used to advertise their game. It was their thing, so to speak, you know, the Snowdrop engine. But in the previous breakdown, it was clear that some of these features, like the destruction or the dynamic material shaders, were not there, and thus the game had been visually downgraded. Right now, I want to do that same test again, and not only will it be easier this time because I can actually play the game myself, and thus I will be able to do my own testing, we are also very close to release, so what you're seeing here is very representative of the final product. But before we begin, I just want to say that I'm doing 2 things different from how I did them last time. First up, instead of just seeing if an option is in the game or not, I'm also adding a middle option, which means that the feature is still in the game, but to a lesser degree. And second up, this time I'm going to start the list from the bottom and then work my way up. The reason that I'm doing this is because last time both the advanced particle system and the time of day seem to still be in the game, and if this is the case again, then we can quickly confirm that these are indeed still in the game and then move on to the other features. So first up, time of day, and it is really hard to argue with this one. Everybody has probably seen one of those time-lapse videos by now, and there really isn't any argument that you can make to say that time of day has been removed. The game does have a 24-hour cycle, and it does work like it was promised, so yes, time of day is still in the game. Next up, we have the particle system. Basically, this is the term that they use to describe the way that particles, like the snowflakes and the fog, change color when they pass through light. And I'm also very happy to tell you that not only is this still in the game, but it also looks better than ever, especially when it's night and you're going through a snowstorm. You can clearly see how all the particles just change color when affected by light, and this effect is not baked, because almost every light can be shot down temporarily, which, has an impact on the particles around it. The advanced particle system is, as I expected, also still in the game. There is no doubt about that. But then we get to the dynamic material shaders, and this is where the whole thing starts to fall apart a bit. Yes, the snow still stacks and melts when it is either snowing or sunny, so from a technical point of view, the feature is still in the game. But the changes to the snow aren't nearly as big as what they were in 2013. In the current game, you only have these very thin layers of snow that fade away slowly and then come back, but the big chunks of snow, they don't appear to be melting at all, and trust me, I've been looking at them for a long time. On top of that, we were also able to see that the flamethrower turret and the seeker mine could melt away the snow in the 2014 trailer, but that as well seems to be a thing of the past. The skills and the grenades, they just result in a big black texture that fades away over time. I do have to say though that some of the objects, like the vehicles in the game, they did seem to have some sort of melting snow effect when exposed to heat. But I later figured out that those objects are scripted to lose their snow as soon as an explosion went off near them. To prove this, I can easily throw a tear gas grenade or shoot some explosive rounds at any vehicle in the game, and upon explosion, the car will be completely void of any snow. And this disappearing snow effect only seems to apply to cars and very small objects like the street cones. The snow on any other object, no matter how thin the layer is, will not melt. It will just again result in that black texture that I just talked about. On the other hand though, we can't really say that the feature is completely gone, since the environment and things like character clothes, NPCs and dogs, they are still affected by the weather. It's just that it doesn't react dynamically to heat sources anymore. Fourth on the list, we have the procedural destruction, and visually, it works pretty much like it was promised. Walls break down like they're supposed to, thin objects and foliage will have holes in them after shooting a couple of bullets through, glass breaks down nicely, wood breaks in pieces, and you can even see the impact of bullets on tents and garbage bags, and thin metal even budges when you shoot it. So there are so many of these destruction effects that make the game just look really good. And that all sounds perfect, right? And that would be if it wasn't for one thing. The bullet penetration, because as it stands right now, bullet penetration has been completely removed from the game. I got my friend to join me in the dark zone, leave my group and then stand behind a few walls, and then I shot a couple of rounds and nothing happened. So I was thinking, maybe this wall is too thick, maybe I gotta try it some other place or with some other materials, but even things as thin as the corner of a tent or something as thin as this piece of foliage, that will just prevent players from being damaged. Now the weird part is that in some cases you can still see the bullets travel through some of these materials. It's just that the enemies will not take any damage. So there is a very, very small chance that this is just a bug for the beta. And I was even thinking that bullet penetration might have been completely disabled for the beta to prevent players from abusing the shield glitch too much and shoot through walls. But funny enough, there is actually bullet penetration in some spots from inside of these buildings. So, that still works. Bottom line is, there is no bullet penetration in any shape or form, except if you glitch yourself inside of a building and then shoot from there. So, just like with the dynamic material shaders, technically the procedural destruction is still in the game, but it just doesn't work like the way they showed it in the trailers. And then we get to the last one, the dynamic global illumination. I literally spent hours upon hours trying to look for this one, but at the end of the day, I just couldn't find it. There is no denying that the developers did a good job with all the lights in all the environments, and I really wanted to believe that global illumination was back in the game, but it just simply isn't. You see, in the game you have a lot of these very pretty scenes where there's either a light hanging from the ceiling or, a spotlight showing off the scene. And in some cases you would think that global illumination is definitely present. Take for example this fluorescent tube right here that is shining into one direction, but you can still see that the walls and the objects behind the light are also lit up a little bit. So yeah, one would assume that is the global illumination doing its work. But at the end of the day, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but this is just some small trickery. To explain to you what is really going on, I decided to recreate the scene in Halo 5 Forge. It doesn't look as good, but it should get the point across. Basically, almost every light in the Division is actually a combination of two light sources, and I'm gonna use some technical terms here, but just try to keep up. The first light that they use is an omnidirectional point light, and they also use a directional spotlight. They're basically scripted so that when one light goes off, the other one goes off as well, making it look like there's only one light. Now, the spotlight is the big beam of light that you so often come across in the game, and you can see that when I place this down in my Halo 5 recreation, that it will look a little bit bland and a little bit fake. That is because there is no global illumination. The light doesn't bounce around the room, and so it's very harsh and, it doesn't look real. Now, what the developers in the Division have done, instead of using global illumination, they have placed the second light, the point light, on the exact same place as the spotlight. And basically, for the ones that don't know, a point light is a light that shines into every direction. Right now, it doesn't look good and it looks even more fake, but if you dim this point light so that it isn't bright and make it the same color as the spotlight, it will appear as if the light in the room is bouncing around a little bit, while in reality, that is just the second light doing its job. A pretty big tell that they are using point lights is that point lights usually do not emit shadows. That pretty much means that walls and objects that should not be lit will still be affected by the point light. And you can see that this is indeed the case in my Halo 5 recreation and in the Division. The floor and the walls and the objects that shouldn't be lit up are still affected by the point light, which means that they indeed did not use the global illumination. Another big tell that it isn't real global illumination is that there isn't any light bleed. Take for example this wall in the parking garage. We have a black wall, we have the white light, and then we have a yellow drawing on the wall. Now, if true global illumination was a factor here, we should see little bits of yellow on the floor and on the ceiling and all of that stuff while the light is on. That's called the light bleed. But that isn't the case. Again, no global illumination. And it's not just on these spots. Like I said, I searched for hours, but everywhere that I looked, it was the same thing. A combination of a spot and a point light were used to mimic global illumination. So at this point, I'm almost 100% sure that the Division does not have global illumination. And if it does, it most certainly isn't the same like what we saw in 2013. So yeah, those are pretty much the results that I ended up with. I do want to share that all of this footage was captured from the beta, but I mean, the game is coming out the 8th of March, and I highly doubt that anything will change between now and then. And look, I know what some of you are going to drop down in the comment section right now, or may have already commented down. You're gonna say, oh my god, who cares, it's just a game, or gameplay over graphics, go back to Nintendo 64. And look, this is my opinion on the whole thing. If you don't care about graphics, you know, good for you, more power to you. I'm not going to sit here and say that the game looks bad, because if I'm being honest with you, I think that the game still looks very good even without some of these effects. But to some people, graphics matter, to a lot of people actually, and the fact that I have over 250,000 views on my previous comparison just proves that. My idea to avoid all of this would be to simply not show the game until it's nearly finished. But this topic, again, has so many shades of grey to it, and arguments and counter-arguments that you could make. I mean, you could say that the developers announced this too early, but it was also originally gonna come out for 2014, so they didn't know they were gonna have issues. But, you know, you could say that the PS4 and Xbox weren't released yet, but they still had dev kits, so they knew how powerful it was gonna be. They had a rough idea. You could say that they knew what they were doing. You could say that they didn't know what they were doing. It was done on purpose. It was not done on purpose, and just on and on and on. And I just feel like I don't know anymore, you know? What I'm currently looking forward to is GDC this year at the 18th of March, because Massive Entertainment is going to have a presentation there about The Division. And the main topic is, well, you guessed it, global illumination. They say, and I quote, that their implementation is based on radiance transfer probes and allows real-time light bouncing from completely dynamic light sources, both on console and PC. So yeah, obviously I'm going to be watching this presentation, and maybe they will show some locations with examples where we can see this global illumination in effect. I couldn't find any myself, I could only find some smart tricks, but hey, who am I, right? If they have a freaking presentation about the topic, there must be something to it, right? But anyway, I guess that was everything for today. As always, I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys later, or like they say, in the Netherlands. Zie je later!